the Wednesday, September 3rd meeting of the Middleton Affordable Housing Trust. It is 6:04 PM. A reminder for those in the audience that this meeting is being recorded. Thank you, Anna. I know you sent over some minutes specifically from our August 6th meeting. I don't know if folks have had an opportunity to review them, if there are any questions on them. If not, I would entertain a motion to approve our minutes of October 6th.
So moved.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second that.
Is a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, if any? Okay, that passes. I know this evening we're going to have Harbor Lights Homes in for a presentation. Prior to then, we can move down the agenda to the Senior Home Repair Program. And again, another big thank you for the work you've put together on this. I did notice you updated the flyer. Really like the layout of it, as well as calling out that this is a program specifically put together by the town of Middleton and the Affordable Housing Trust. I also know that you had put together some ideas of where to promote this. Senior Center, the Veterans Service Officer, school care workers, and specifically the programs in our elementary school, as well as I think we should also work with Masco, the clerk's office, the assessor's office, town administrator's office, bulletin board at the DPW, library, and the fire department as part of their new safety home visits that have been ongoing, which I think is going to be a significant source of business into the Middleton Home Repair Program, and then our state legislative delegation, specifically their constituent services teams for the 2 state reps and the state senator. But I don't know if folks had given any thought since our last meeting of other ways to promote the program, because we are ready to get rolling.
We talked, might want to look at radio.
Yeah, there is a North Shore presence.
Yeah, Masco, I believe, still has their radio station too.
Oh, they do?
Yeah. The other thing too is I was thinking about, I talked over with my commander down the American Legion post, and he has no problem putting out flyers and
Okay.
everything down the American Legion at 69 River Street. You know, we can post there also.
Okay.
Brian?
Yeah.
Is there any criteria for who can benefit from this?
Yes, yeah, so there's a whole slew of criteria that we laid out. Some of it is based on income, some of it is based on the size of the project. At certain levels, the project would become to be repaid, but over a certain period of time, that repayment would process would disappear over, is it a 5-year process?
5 years.
Yeah,
Was it?
I believe it's 10 years
Yeah, it's 10
overall.
years.
10 years overall.
Yeah, but the payment
For the
process
highest.
doesn't start until,
So
It was like 3 years.
It would
and then
be-
there were-
you would pay 100% if you sold the house in the first 5 years.
5
right,
Yeah.
yes.
And then starting on
6
year
to 10.
It would
6,
come-
20%
it would come
off,
reduction
yes.
every year.
And cost of this could be up to $25,000, would include all kinds of critical repairs. This could include, emergency prepared programs. We're partnering with Habitat for Humanity, but Habitat for Humanity has some other partners that they refer out to, for example, around utilities, i.e. Heating systems, water heaters, and others that can also provide
Who evaluates the income criteria?
that is evaluated by Habitat for Humanity.
At no cost.
The Habitat Humanity is managing it all for a fee of the project. They are vetting the builders or the contractors. They are vetting that the work has been done. They are evaluating what work is being proposed, also looking at there are other sources of funding that can be utilized in programs like that.
It's, vetting the income, it can be a time-consuming process, so I'm glad it's nobody in town that's.
Yeah, no, it's one of the reasons why we propose bringing on Habitat for Humanity is specifically because of, they do this in multiple communities. I think they do this right in North Andover. And they have a process in place. They have a person dedicated to this. But they also have a bench of vendors that are available that can actually come out and look at the work and determine what needs to be done.
Yeah, make sure it's done correctly, and they also pull the proper permits that are required and everything else like that. They fully vet that themselves. They make sure that's all taken care of before anything starts.
So,
They also help people with the application process and making sure, because people may not know if, I think they said that if they own their house or not was it's a common thing that comes up is, are you the homeowner? And making sure that people have all the documentation that they need, they can help walk that through. So if people aren't sure if they're eligible, definitely apply, because they have a process that can help through that, and also introduce people to other programs if they're available.
exactly.
You may want to, in terms of advertising, when the new town hall community center opens and the new food pantry space within the food pantry.
Yeah, good point. So we're also looking at some online opportunities here, obviously North Shore Radio, Masco Radio, but online, our own committee's website, the town's website overall, social media. We have a pretty well-followed Town of Middleton social media site. But one of the bullets you had on here I really like, and I'm sure Paul's listening in the back right now, I think we should consider doing a public access media video. We've been talking about this both on the Affordable Housing Trust. This is a great way to further introduce the trust, but actually the Middleton Home Repair Program that could be utilized, both the video that could be on our local access TV, but a video that could be on our actual website. So when somebody comes to the Middleton Home page, or they click on this URL here, that in fact we can actually have a video that can help maybe with some Q&As, like what did this mean, like what are some examples of some programs or some repairs that I need at my home that may qualify for this. And I would actually recommend, if we're going to do something like that, I'd like to do it with Habitat for Humanity, because they can help answer some of the questions and make this a less daunting task for an individual that thinks they have needs, but also let them know that there's a process to this, there's a level of focus by a professional organization like Habitat for Humanity that's actually helping the town on this. So I would welcome, if anybody on this committee would like to be the face of the video, I'd welcome you to do that. I'll work with Paul and the team at Public Access on doing this. I mean, I know our town administrator's become a pro at doing videos himself during budget season, but I think it's a great opportunity for us to promote this. But, I mean, other than that, we're ready to go live with this, correct?
Yes, I'm still waiting. Actually, the answer's not yes. No, I'm still waiting on the final agreement. Habitat is reviewing what we edited to send to them.
Okay.
So once that's signed, yes.
So Mead Tellerman has reviewed the document and what's been sent back?
Yes, so they reviewed and made their edits, and right now Habitat is reviewing those edits.
Okay. Red lines back and forth, and then, okay.
Yeah, all
So
that.
all that's left is ink to paper. So
Yep.
the dollars, thank you very much, the dollars that came from the CPC and town meeting. But, so other than that, we're ready to roll on this. So I think this is a perfect time to kick this off. So if folks are okay with the flyer as it sits, I'd like to start getting this flyer posted. Thank you for American Legion and others. So for those sites that are outside of, obviously, Anna, I'm sure you can probably take care of the DPW bulletin board because it's right where you're seated. I'm willing to take the, get these up within our clerk's office, assessor's office, and others. Buzz, if you'd be willing to.
I'll do the American Legion.
American Legion, and Chief, you know anybody at the fire department?
I might.
We'll actually get a bunch of these to you at the fire department that they can put as part of when they're doing the home visits. Now, I'd say for some of those locations that they've already visited, if there's things that became identifiable to the team there, if we could have you kind of work with, I'm not sure who's managing the program over there.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I can reach out to John that runs Oak Knoll and put some out in their common area, see if we can get some flyers out there behind the police department.
Okay. Good.
Sorry, could we put on the Middleton home repair things like ramps, because ramps were one of the very first things we were talking about, and then also any sort of heating. So instead of having 4 items, we could probably put 6.
So when you say, so you said maybe it's grab bars, ramps, and,
Heating.
so maybe instead of plumbing, it would be HVAC?
Yeah. I mean, plumbing is also,
Well, no, I think plumbing would stay too, because that would include, you
Yeah.
know,
Toilets and.
yeah.
I mean, yeah, we could also just add like one extra point that is, and more, so people don't think it's limited to
it's just
these.
correct. I
So,
like
but the just, yeah, for spacing purposes.
Okay.
I think that could
Yep.
be because being people, we don't know all of the things that may be
Okay.
right now.
And it's probably not a bad idea, as we're working on developing the video, of probably developing some Q&As around here that, so if somebody's standing at, a member of the fire department is doing the home visit and a question comes up, they have some Q&As in their pocket to be able to answer some questions, or at least where to refer back to. And, you know, we can put some of those as part of the website as well as the public access video that we're going to put together.
Don't actually see it on our list of promotion plan.
Yeah, is Mel still doing inserts, and first of all, who still gets a bill in the mail?
Me.
I do.
I'm old fashioned.
I still get paper, but I do it online anyway.
Yeah, so I don't even know if we get it
I
in the
mail
mail
checks still.
anymore. I think it's just all electronic, but, okay, so there goes my argument that nobody gets mail, or at least you guys are the exception to the norm, maybe. So let's also look at Meld and see about if they can help us with an insert. Now, maybe the insert isn't this full size, it may have to be made smaller, but we'll work on that.
Maybe something we can do this year where excise taxes will be coming out, everybody gets their excise bill. Maybe
That's a
the
good
town
point.
could do something to put a flyer in the excise also, something like that.
Okay, I'll talk to the assessor's office on that, and the tax collector.
It might be easier to get it into the annual census mailing,
Ah, excellent.
because that already includes, a flyer for the Friends of the Flint, dog licenses, things beyond the census.
We should, also thinking of other activities where there are large crowds coming. One of them I'm thinking of is, now that we're in September, fall is upon us, we're going to have the Pumpkin Festival coming up as well.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
Okay. Okay, so I will take, to make sure that these get to, so, first off, I assume we have a color printer, we can print these.
Yes, I
Off
can
that.
print as many as we need.
Okay, and then I'll take Memorial Hall, and I'll parcel out to folks here, and then I just ask if you have anything else of where we can post and provide some of this for distribution.
The post office, that class You walk into the, in the lobby between the old bank and the
Yeah.
post office, is this glass case.
Bulletin board, yeah, they have one there.
I'm also going to reach out to the Board of Trade to see if there are any businesses that are members of the Board of Trade that may want to have these at their business. You know, I'm thinking of certain restaurants in town that have a bulletin board, like Freddy's has one right at their front door and so
Yeah.
forth, so. Okay, I will, I'll update this list of what we have here, and I'll send out a note and parcel out to some folks that if you could kind of be the face of it to that organization, and then, you know, your association has a mailroom, you know,
Yep,
we
yep.
should probably look at some of the other association mailrooms.
I could drop some off at Peachy.
Yeah, Peachy, Peasley, I assume there's one down at,
Can we get, can't think of his name, the guy on the board who's Phil Pond.
Jeff.
Chuck Gaba, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. And I know we have a good relationship with a lot of the larger condo developments during budget season. We do some budget hearings down there as well, including over at the Ferncroft. So Ferncroft Towers. Okay. If we get this, are you expecting the next like week or two we'll get to ink on paper?
Yeah, so I'm hoping for September 15th. That was kind of my target date
Okay.
in mind.
So other than signatory from somebody on the board, there's nothing else that we have to take for a affirmative vote, unless there's change in the language.
Correct.
Okay. Okay.
If it's helpful, once we have that final document, and you'll know about it because you'll sign it, but I can also send a note to the rest of the board just to let everyone know it's final. And then I can, by email, coordinate picking up flyers and putting them out. If we're good after that September 15th date, obviously, if we're not good yet, then I'll push the date a bit. But, yeah, if that works for everyone.
Okay. Oh, and Costa, to your point of eligibility levels, so single-member household making $69,480 annually, two-member households making up to $79,440 annually would qualify for the program. And then for three or more family members, there's different limits.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if this is possible, but there are, tax payers that get, exemptions on the real estate taxes based on income. The assessor's office knows who those people are, and letting those people know about the program may be the best way to reach people that would qualify and may have the need.
Okay. Okay, that's on the list as well.
Quick question, is Habitat doing a report for us, let's say every quarter, saying what projects they did, how much it costs, how long it took? Because the reporting for me.
Yeah, because this is going to be a rolling process, so it's not like it's apply by October 15th, apply by January 15th. It's a rolling process. So I think we can work with Habitat for Humanity to come up with a schedule of, quarterly of, how many applicants, where they are in the mix, 4 applicants that applied, 3 of them qualified, 1 didn't, and I don't need this to be name identified. It can be more de-identified and take out some of that personally identifiable information. So we could work with Habitat to come up with and I'm sure they've got a process that they already have in place with some of the other communities that they're supporting. We'll just have to figure out if that works for us.
Because if we are burning down faster than we expect, then hopefully they should tell us, hey, you're gonna be out of money by this month. We're gonna expect, a phase 2 at some point of whatever we wanna give them.
Yep. Agree. Okay. Anything else on, so I will, I'll work with you, Anna, to kind of put together a Q&A.
Yeah.
And then, mostly I'm interested in the Q&A for the organizations that are going to be doing some of the direct outreach, like our Veteran Service Officer, our Council on Aging. You know, part of what I'd like to do is see this as a future piece in the Council on Aging newsletter, but include some Q&As. So when they're doing some outreach on this, especially the fire department with their outreach program, folks are going to have questions, and I don't want it to get lost in there. Well, I don't know, call in or call Brian, call Herman or whatever, and then somebody not follow up with us, so. Okay. That's good. Anna, thank you for the work on this. Good stuff.
I have one last question, I
Yeah, go
apologize.
ahead.
Were we ever planning to do like an open session, like at a library or school,
So,
and just, you know, say, hey, here's an open day for this program, if you want to come along, sit down?
yeah, I think that might not be a bad idea. Maybe, I like the idea of doing the video. Let's get the video under our belt, and get some of these out into the water table and see how folks are starting to approach. If we're not seeing much uptake on this, and we think maybe we need to do an open session, because, I mean, the success of the open session is only going to be how we promote folks to come to the open session.
Right.
So what we may find is all this material we put out, people are just, they don't understand. And if that's the case, then we need to have an open session to sit down and have. And maybe the open session is come to the Council on Aging on Thursday, where there'll be a, you know, during lunch, here's somebody from the Affordable Housing Trust, or come to the library on Thursday evening and for an open forum on this. And maybe what we can do is also work with some of our other colleague boards to promote as well. Okay. Herman, thank you for that. All good
worries.
points. So, back to number 2 on our agenda, we have with us this evening Harbor Light Homes. So, come on up, introduce yourself. We'll go around and introduce ourselves as well. I really appreciate you coming in this evening. We've been looking forward to this discussion, both the town overall, but here with the Affordable Housing Trust, and an opportunity to learn more about you and ways that we may be able to work together. So, my name's Brian Crester. I'm the chair of the Affordable Housing Trust. I sit on this committee as a member of the Select Board.
I'm Jason Bernhardt. I am representing the planning board of Middleton.
Rich Gregario, I'm on the Finance Committee, and I'm here as treasurer.
I'm Beth Andrews-Beck. I'm a member at large.
My name is Herman Lamont Creaky. I'm the clerk and a member at large.
Tom Rodnick, member at large.
And I'm Anna Berry Carmer, Planning Director.
I'm Andrew Mackenzie DeFranza. I'm from Harbor Light Homes, and it's a great delight to be here with you all. Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for coming in. So, I think we all know a little bit about Harbor Light Homes, but
Sure.
probably not enough to actually fully understand your portfolio and what you do. But
Okay.
I think there's also an opportunity for us to start having a conversation about, you know, you probably just heard the tail end. One of the first things that we're kicking off here with our Affordable Housing Trust is a home repair program. We're starting off with some small wins and some efforts as a newly created organization, but really looking to make some other steps forward. You know, we are, as a town that is not unfocused on bringing in new affordable housing. Last night, we had 70 people in the room next door for a community forum about a 40B project that has been proposed over near the Ferncroft. We have another 40B project that's been approved at Angelica's, and we're working across a bunch of different fronts to increase opportunities for individuals to either age in place in this town or enter this town as a young family, or any other opportunities thereof. Another thing this Affordable Housing Trust has been concerned about is 15, 20 years ago, the vast majority of our town employees lived in town. Today, the vast, vast majority of our employees do not live in this town. You know, and that's not unknown to you. That's not a
Yep.
That's not indicative of just Middleton. That is an issue all across the greater Boston area here and up in the North Shore and the Merrimack Valley. Simultaneously, we're just finishing the finishing touches on a brand-new municipal complex. That means we have a series of properties in town that we are working to make decisions on what we may do with in the future. One of them, town meeting has approved us to dispose of and sell. That is our current police department facility. The board that myself and the gentleman in the room behind you serve on are starting to review, for example, like our current town hall, Memorial Hall. And there is some interest in both some future RFPs for that property and another property in town to look towards opportunities for developers and/or organizations that may want to come in and do something different that has an affordable component to that. So we've talked a lot about this, but now is the time to start talking to some organizations that are doing this and start a dialogue here in Middleton.
Sure. Yeah, I can give you the nickel tour, a little bit about who we are and kind of what we do, and happy to talk about, how things work and mechanics and anything you like. So happy to be here. So Harbor Light Homes is a nonprofit organization, headquartered out of Beverly. That's where it started. It's about, we're probably about 70 years old at this point. Started in the early 60s as an outgrowth of one of the local churches. It was part of what they viewed as their social mission to house seniors in the area, not so dissimilar to your agenda item here, and who are really vulnerable, and that's how that started. That was 1962, and we're sort of the descendant of that initial energy. We actually combined forces maybe 16 or 17 years ago with a bunch of other smaller housing nonprofits who had similar stories, but it was getting harder and harder for groups to have the scale, the critical mass, skill set, economic balance sheet, buying power, all that stuff was just getting harder for the smaller groups to do 4 or 5 units at a time. That was becoming impossible. And so we merged about 6 of those groups together to create one group, and the intent was to create a regional but local organization that could service the needs of the wider region and community, and also be contextually sensitive and rooted in a way to be accountable and aware of what was going to work and what the differences were in the communities and what was going to be viable. So trying to keep some capacity at home so we didn't have to sort of go out of the area to get somebody who didn't know us, and that was sort of the goal. And that's, we've been at that for most of the last couple of decades, and that's gone pretty well. So that's how we got here. So we do really 4 things now. We're real estate developers, and so we do all sorts of development, all affordable housing development. Occasionally we have a mixed use provision if there's a need for that, like if a community's looking for it. Sometimes that's because there's a special use. So we, for example, house the food pantry in Hamilton in one of our buildings because that was desired, and at the moment we're housing a agricultural group in a building in Ipswich that we're going to redevelop, and so that occasionally comes up. We haven't done any mixed income activity, although that's come up from time to time. We would if it was the right response to a community need, but our bread and butter is to create opportunity for people that will be economically vulnerable, as you described, just to share seniors, essential workers, people with disabilities. That's really our goal. So anything that a developer does, we're doing permitting, financing, picking, teams, site assessment, anything that anybody else is having to do, we're doing. Of course, the affordable stuff is always a little crazier because you're trying to create a product that is more valuable than your users can afford. So you have the added layer of this financial alchemy of how do you create something that costs this, but then you can charge, much less than that. And in the middle of that mojo is kind of where you're turning the gold into straws, or the straw into gold in that case. And that's hard, but that's a lot of it. So that's the main thing we're known for, though it's the majority of our staff are doing other things. The second thing we do is we manage all of our own property. That's a little unusual. That doesn't mean it's intelligent, but most of our peer organizations do not. They subcontract to usually to for-profits, bigger players. There's a reason for that. The economics of that are challenging. But we've kept it over the years to try to cultivate and grow that activity, partially because we feel like it helps us be more accountable. And so if we're in front of a planning board or a zoning board or anybody else, we can say not only do we own it, we develop it, we own it long-term, and we're the operator. So the same people you see in the beginning are the same, might be different humans, but the organization is still accountable to the community, decades into the deal. And that tends to encourage people. They feel like you're going to be there, which is true. So we manage all our own stuff. We also feel like it gives us a better ability to impact the lives of the residents positively. This was borne out pretty heavily during COVID. We have a lot of elderly housing, and we were the owner and the operator and the service provider. So and it was as you may all recall, it was the Wild West out there. So we were running vaccination clinics in the hallways, of elderly buildings to make sure that people could get access to that, because they weren't going to get online to try to get an appointment at Foxborough and then get to Foxborough at, 87 years old in February. And so we just created a partnership and brought somebody in, and they just went from door to door. People will come out, pop, 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 all the way down. But that kind of stuff. The more if you're running the building, you can do more things. And that worked out. We didn't lose anybody to COVID, which was a shock, but it worked out well. So we manage our own buildings. We do, third thing we do is resident services. So we're interested in folks, we're interested in the locality. I should have mentioned earlier, we work generally from Lynn to Rockport. Sort of generally what I'll say to people in other communities is Lynn to Rockport and west to Middleton. Well, now I'm happy to be sitting here, so you're the west. Boxford, Middleton, that kind of edge, we would go there, but we consider ourselves sort of southern Essex County. There's a possibility we're going to start going a little further north as we get requests, but Essex County is home and kind of where we are. So we do a lot of services for folks that are in our buildings that might have another need in addition to geography and economic vulnerability. So we run a lot of elderly housing for really frail, lower income seniors. We run some for people with disabilities. So we're about to start construction, later this year in Rowley, crossing the Market Basket on Route 1, which I'm sure everybody knows that area. And that's going to have an elderly housing building and then a group home for young adults with autism. And that's an interesting intergenerational multi-use campus. And so we'll do that, housing for people with disabilities. We have some housing for formerly homeless individuals, for formerly homeless families, but anybody who's sort of economically vulnerable in the geography, and then if they have another vulnerability that the services would help them succeed with. So for seniors, that's often home health care, resident manager on site, activities, different sorts of supports that meet their needs. And we rotate that depending on what the population is. We'll do that. And then we tend to do quite a bit of advocacy around public policy locally and at the state level. So we're at the State House quite a bit, responsive to our local state reps and senators when they have requests, groups like yours. So we get lots and lots and lots of phone calls for how does this work? Can we do this? Excuse me, can you look at this site? Can we do, why can't we do, that kind of stuff. And so we try to be as helpful as possible about how the infrastructure can and can't work to meet the goals in each community for their housing intent. So that's sort of the four things we do. We've been around a long time, sort of evolved over the years in various ways. Projects, you have some stuff there in front of you to give you a sense of range. Our smallest project ever was a single unit. I wouldn't recommend that economically, but we have done it. We actually did a 4-unit 40B in Hamilton. Again, I would not recommend that, but it did work. That's where the food pantry is. Our biggest building is 110 units. That's an elderly building in Beverly, and we have stuff all the way in between. Last handful of things we finished, let's say in the last couple of years, an elderly building in Wenham called Maple Woods on the Danvers line, worth a look, really beautiful. kind of back in the woods there, next to the MG dealership. If you're going north on 97, people have probably passed that Winfrey's Fudge next to the Richdales. It's sort of off that corner. That one, Granite Street Crossing in Rockport, small intergenerational deal, right before Bearskin Neck. And that was a senior building with some townhouses for families next to it. Agawam Village, we just finished up. That's in Ipswich on 1A. That was not new construction. That was a preservation deal. The Housing Authority owned 100 units there that were in need of some attention. So we ran a transaction where we joint ventured with them. So now we're part owner of the facility, but we created about a $20 million capital upgrade of those 94 apartments, which was a pretty nutty situation, but it worked out well. We just finished that one. Anchor Point 2 in Beverly is a 39-unit second phase of a two-phase building near Beverly High School. Also worth a look. All 2 and 3 bedrooms for families. And then the Beverly Village for Living in the Arts. That's the old Briscoe Middle School in Beverly. We just redid that with a partner, Beacon Communities, that turned into 91 apartments, but that's essentially all retrofitted classrooms. Pretty incredible looked. Chalkboards still in the rooms, crown molding, teachers' closets right by the door, how they used to have them. Everything's still the same, original flooring, refinished, really gorgeous. So, we're sort of any port in the storm kind of folks. Our missional needle is north. We want to help as many people have good places to live, to age where they help build, or to grow, as you mentioned earlier, their families and give their kids opportunities as possible in many places as possible. And we're involved, our footprint's about 22 communities, and we have projects either done or going in about 12 of those 22. But we can sort of go to anywhere in that footprint where there's a need to do so. So that's kind of where we came from and how we got here and what we've done recently and what we do. And be happy to, if there's something that we can be helpful to the town of Middleton with, we're certainly happy to do that. I will say we're certainly looking a little more attentively in places where we haven't paid as much attention. So Middleton, Danvers, Peabody, I would say, are on our list of looking hard and saying, all right, what should we look at here? We do get asked to go out of the region pretty rarely, so Winthrop, Reading, places have asked us to go. We have declined to do that, particularly because there are places in our own footprint we haven't been. And so we're eager to fill out the map, as it were. So there you go.
So one of the questions I'd have for you is, any examples of how you've worked with communities specifically either on property that the town has owned?
Yep.
Whether it's been you've acquired the property or utilizing any other financing mechanisms in conjunction with the town.
You mean jointly with the town, or?
Either, maybe not so much jointly, but, tax financing efforts and
Sure.
items like that.
Sure. Yeah, so we, occasionally will bid on a municipally controlled parcel. There's always some risk with that. The most recent one we did was the Briscoe School.
Mm-hmm.
That was a public RFP. We have bid on others from time to time. I would say 2 things. One is usually it works the best when we're involved helping the town think about what they want to do with a parcel before the bid process happens, because the way the bid is, you can't really talk to the town once the bid is out, if you're going to bid, right? Which is understandable. And so we've often been involved, are involved right now with a couple where the town or the city is asking us, what do you think about this or that or the other? And we might give them some feedback, and then they're going to put it out to bid. We were this morning, for example, in Salem, looking at a parcel that the Housing Authority owns. It's not the town, it's a government unit, but they have similar rules. And so it can be tricky, I will say, because you're both wanting to be as helpful as possible. The politics of how the RFP actually rolls out, can be interesting. So there are times, at least a couple of times, where I thought we had like a really good proposal for something, and we got beat by somebody else for some reason that that in my view didn't match the RFP. So there's usually, you have to be aware of what's going on under the RFP. Took me about 10 years to figure that part out. And as long as you're aware of that. But we've been involved that way. We've never used the TIF, Tax Incremental Finance District, though we have discussed it a number of times. Typically what we find is either if the deal can work without the TIF, the town or the city prefers it because they of course don't want to give up the tax revenue. So we might negotiate something that's not exactly a formal, what I would call a formal TIF, but some agreement that says, look, we're gonna, we want you to tax this thing as unoccupied during construction at a lower value, and then when the thing is occupied, you can hit it for, that kind of a thing. We've done that quite a bit.
Okay.
But you're trying to be, it is a little bit of a dance because you're trying to be considerate of what the town's needs are. Sometimes
I appreciate that. So,
Yeah.
Again, as I told you, we have some parcels that may be disposed of, one of them being our current town hall, another one is a parcel of land over on the other side of town that, both are zoned differently.
Yep.
But the board that I sit on, there's been some discussions, very public discussions there of, the possibility of maybe issuing an RFI
Yes.
to organizations like yourself to come in and say, here's some things you could think about. And,
Yep.
and sometimes an RFI makes you think differently than you would normally sitting down at across the table and say, like, what would you do here?
Right.
And so, I think there's some opportunity there. Secondly, and the reason why I was asking TIF or any other type of, for lack of a better term, let's just call it tax deferral or,
Yep.
is, for the properties that we're talking about, they're not on the tax rolls now. We could post it tomorrow in RFP and sell it to a developer to put
Of course.
17 houses on that are going to look like the 17 houses that have been built everywhere else. That
Right.
is going to do absolutely zero to
Right.
change the issue that, as a town, we're still dealing with in terms of
Right.
people being able to age in place, children being able to stay in the town that they were born in, and new families to be able to enter here, or seniors to remain in town. So all of those, we're as a board, we're weighing with a lot of public input, but I think this is where we could use some guidance from, any developer could come in and give us the guidance. You guys are different.
Yeah.
Your model is different, your philosophy is different, your culture is different. And, what I like is, what you said is, we build and then we manage.
Yeah.
And so, what would be helpful is, as we're kind of putting together what we're going to think about on this, some things that we should consider
Yeah.
in an RFI, because we don't want to go to an RFP, because you're right, once you go to an RFP, then we'll talk to you after the award's over.
That's right. Yeah.
Sometimes that's too late.
Yeah. What I would say, by way of encouragement or counsel, and you're right about all that, is you definitely want to be sharp about utilizing your assets, and I don't mean the buildings, but you have control of those parcels, so that however you dispose of them, you want to be really sharp about making sure your documents are consistent with your intent. So when because often what we'll see is there'll be mixed constituencies, it's common, and things will get proposed. And so, for example, you could get the highest bid that has the least, to your point about the 17 houses, that will have the least bearing on your goals. And somebody will say, well, we should take the highest bid because they want to get the most revenue, but then you get something that maybe you don't want. So you want to be really clear, because you have leverage in that moment because you're in control. And you can write the script. If you say, we want this on this site, give me a proposal for that, then your involvement in it, especially, as you said, around taxes, permitting, that's a huge one. In some ways, I'd say that's even more valuable than the tax, is the support for the permitting. And then some communities.
So when you say support for permitting, i.e., this is what we envision, it's in the RFP, so, or are you saying the permitting process is reduced rate?
Not so much the cost as much as the process. So what people will be scared of is Like if you said to me, here's a small parcel, we want you to do a smaller amount of units, but it's going to be a 40B, for example, because we don't have the zoning for it. That's the challenge, because if you get sued on a 40B, at a small scale, you'll bleed out. Like you can't, economically, you can't carry it. This is a reason, there's this weird circle where the for-profits do these huge 40Bs, partially because they're hedging against their legal risk. But if you want to do something small and very local, you can do it with a 40B, but you can't get hit in the head too many times. That's one where you're like, oh, is there a way to zone this or signal in the RFP that the public bodies are going to support the permitting
Or
process?
what
That
about
kind of-
something like a parcel that, under current zoning would look like a single family?
Yep.
Lots, however, would any developer came in, would probably build 3,500 to 4,000
Yep.
square foot homes on
Yep.
it. But understanding that the town may want something to look different, i.e. building smaller homes. More green space. Have any experience doing things like that?
Yeah, so I have a bunch actually in the discussion process. So you can make that definitive. Both, you have sort of these different control mechanisms. So you have the let's call it the RFI/P, wherever you are, the disposition of the asset. You have control there that you could dictate the use through that process. And you could say things like, we will favor, concepts that do these things. Now you could, of course, so that's one way. You can do that with local funds or tax relief. So it's one of the ways we've done that with communities is we'll use housing funds from the trust fund or CPC, and they have control mechanisms through the grant agreements about use. The third way is you can do it through the permitting. So you could do it through a zoning change, which is hard, not easy. So you could do I've seen in those cases, communities use like an open space residential district zoning where they're prescribing, we want this much percentage of green space and we prefer smaller cluster cottage type style with as much green space preserved as possible. You can do that through the zoning. So you can influence the outcome of what you're going to get through any of those three lanes. Money or tax deferral, which is the same thing, really. Permitting, and then the disposition of the asset. If it was a private sale, not a public asset, you could still do it. You could still have influence over it through the permitting and through the funding, not through the disposition because it's not your parcel. So there's mix and match ways. It's sort of a belt and suspenders. Any one of those things can get you leverage. All three of them get you a lot of leverage. But yeah, you can do that. We proposed once, exactly to your point. We didn't end up building this, but in Hamilton we proposed I had a big parcel, 20 acres, and we proposed 100 units, but they came in like this village style where each of the buildings, to your point about the 4,000 square foot house, there were 6 apartments per pod, but they all looked like a big house, little house barn design. So they looked like the other big house.
Fit the neighborhood.
They fit the neighborhood, looked the same thing, but I had 6 in each one. I thought it was brilliant, mind you, and it was the architect's idea, not mine. I thought it was brilliant. It went over like a lead balloon, but it was a really good idea. I was like, this looks exactly like everything else.
So is the lead balloon that folks thought it was too dense in terms of?
But they didn't. No, almost. We were probing that. I had a near abutter who was opposed. And we brought him to one of Harbor Light's board meetings, so my board meeting. Bill, his name was. And because we were trying to figure out, like, what is it you don't like about this? So we said, well, if it was smaller, we're trying to figure out, is it the density? Because the parcel was enormous.
Yeah, 20 acres.
20
Like,
acres, you can
20 acres. This is very low density relative to total. And we said, well, how about if it was, 80 or 60? So we went all the way down to 1. We said, what if it was a single unit? He said, no. I'd still be opposed. I said, well, what can I do for you? I can't. There's no version of this. It wasn't about the size because they were small. It wasn't about the height because they
About
were
anything.
2-story. It was.
He didn't want anything next door.
He did not want anything next door, and he was prepared to go to war over it. As were we, at that point. But we were trying to be like, if he had said, "I'll take 50," if you design it this way and that way and put it over here, we would have said, "Fine." let's do that. But there was nowhere. Like, there was nothing, you couldn't find it. So it is doable, to your point. But you sort of have to know what you want going when you write that document, then the RFP particularly. And then if you want any associated zoning. And you could do that through, you don't have to do you could do a 40R, or you could do, there are different ways, your planning folks will be good at this, but there are different ways you could do that. And you can do it through a 40B.
40R is what, a lip?
No, 40R is it's almost it's like an overlay. It just gets the town more income. There's special incentives from the state for the town if you do a 40R, both for the school and for the town itself. And it's a way of, it's sort of like a form-based zone for a very particular geography. So if you said, we want to do a 40R for these 5 miles of this particular part of town, you could then be prescriptive about what you want in that zone, but it requires.
So that's an overlay.
It's like an overlay.
Okay.
It functions like an overlay. I don't know if you feel like that's fair.
Yeah, I think so.
We had one proposed in the master plan that we
Yeah.
never did.
Yeah. So Marblehead has done one. Beverly, we built one in Beverly. We've proposed them in some other cases. The nice thing about them is they're really smart if you're on the municipal side, because they come with some incentives. And if you're planning zoning changes anyway to accommodate, you might as well get paid. It's sort of you can use the money. The money's not restricted. It comes to the municipality, not to the project. So it's a clever idea. Usually the reason communities do or don't like it is political. Is if there's a lot of political heat on the deal, they prefer that you do a 40B, because then the heat comes to me, which is fine. I'm used to that. If it's 40R, it has to, in your case, it's town meeting. Yeah. As a, selectman would have to recommend, and then it would go to, so you have risk
Yeah.
if it doesn't pass, but if it does, the town stands to benefit. Anyway, it's a sidebar, but,
It's
so there
something
are,
we could do before.
Absolutely.
You come in, and so it takes the risk off too,
Absolutely.
because we could find out if we can get it through before
Yes.
you start.
yes, you have the most influence,
Yeah.
both technically, meaning that, the documents, but also there's a signaling there, like that you're doing in the document, like, we really want this. The smaller, quirkier, more difficult the project is, the better it is to diminish the risk, I would say. So for example, a big project, they can handle their own risk. If you're doing 200 units in a whack, they'll figure it out. But it's probably not what you're proposing, is my guess. You want to do something, south of 50. You want to make that as smooth as, you want that to go through, because that's what you want. So you don't want that project taking a lot of risk, particularly if you have lots of, there's open space goals, maybe there's certain landscaping screening goals, maybe there's public access. I've seen all of that. It's all doable, but it's better to have it smooth. If you know what you're wanting to do, you want to make the path to that as smooth as possible, so that you get what you want. I don't know if that helps.
Any other questions from the board members?
Have you worked on projects where you've worked with schools or school systems?
Yeah, we've redeveloped schools. We have 3, 2 I inherited, so I didn't do them myself. Those 2 are on land leases, one in Rockport, one in Ipswich, and then the one in Beverly we just did, that one was a purchase. But they were.
Can I interrupt there for a second? Talk to me about land lease.
Land lease with a municipality you can do.
Something you like to do?
Not really.
Okay.
It's doable. I think it's more, it's not a problem, but it's more, it gives people the impression of they have some comfort on the idea that they have not sold the asset. But as a functional matter, it never, you're doing like a 99-year lease. It doesn't really do anything, but
You
it
won't
makes.
be here when that lease is over.
None of us are going to be here, and it's not likely it's going to become something else, but at the moment when it's getting voted on, people feel better about it if they're worried about the sale idea. So it's
Sorry.
kind of a nothing thing, but we'll do it. Where it gets weird is you can't really do it privately. That the state gets twitchy about. So I've had that happen where I'll have a private seller say, I don't want to sell the parcel, I want to lease it to you, and the state almost invariably be like, no. If there's an economic interest, when you're doing it with a town, usually they're leasing it to you for $1 a year or something ridiculous. So, I'm sorry, your question again.
Oh,
School.
I was curious about school, and particularly, like, I know that a lot of, you serve a lot of different populations, so
Yeah.
I was wondering about families in particular.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, so we've done schools themselves, and then if we're doing family housing, I would say our service, that service part of our activity, our relationship then with the local district is really important, because we're navigating families, they're navigating the families. Sometimes they're navigating, we've had this happen a number of times, staff of the school district. So like I have a few bus drivers at one building, I have paras, I have, so we may have that kind of a thing as well. So it's sometimes multi-layered, where you're like, okay, what's happening with these kids at this school? So right now, we're occupying a new building, and it's obviously school started this week. And so my staff was doing a lot of work getting kids registered over the summer. So they were interacting with the principal of the elementary school, like this one that was going to house those kids. And so there was a lot of, but we would view that as it's less of a formal, like, here's an agreement with the school. It's more of a, here's a relationship with a collaborator or partner. You have this need, maybe they have a need that they want us to worry about for a kid that's in their system. That happens. Sometimes it's about populating the building, like if we have a new building opening. So occasionally we'll have special slots saved for families that are homeless or at risk of being homeless. And the school districts all have one designated officer, their McKinney-Vento officer, who's responsible for knowing which of the kids from that town, they may not be physically in the town anymore. They could be getting bused from who the hell knows where. Sorry, it's being recorded, right? But that person will know that. So then we want that person to know, hey, this building has 5 slots and there's a local preference, and your person who's a Middleton person, but they're in a shelter in Fitchburg, they could apply and get preference and be back.
So
that
how
kind of
often
thing.
do you have
So that
preference?
kind of relationship is deep,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
How often do you have preference programs when you do a project in, like, say you were doing a project in Middleton that was private land that you purchased, but would you ever have preference in there for, current residents and/or employees?
Yeah, almost always. The state, 2 variables there that are important. One is the state won't give you more than 70%. That's their regulation of local preference. So that's pretty much definitive. The second one is you have to still ask the state for anything from 0 to 70. So when you go to the state and say, hey, I want a 70% local preference, which is almost always what we'll try for, particularly what we'll tell the towns, this is back to your previous point, Mr. Chair, is if we go to the state and say this town disposed of the asset for affordable housing and the housing trust put in money and they deferred taxes for this period of time and they want 70% local preference, your leverage with the state as a municipality is better in that moment because you have skin in the game. And so they're likely to be more responsive.
So in cases like that where you've been able to leverage that 70%,
Yep.
and the project is all over, the door's open,
Yeah.
and it's populated,
Yeah.
what percent do you usually end up at?
Good question. So some of that depends on the marketing, which is heavy, especially in a new place, like a lot of marketing, because you're trying to get into the cracks of the town. You were saying it earlier.
Well, we were just
Counts-
talking about that in the cracks of the town
Exactly.
of our service.
Council on Aging, school district, you're trying to get the staff to families, to all kinds of things. So like we just finished a building in Wenham and I have, a couple of police officers, it's an elderly building, so I have I think 2 of the police officers, their parents, are there now. So it's interesting, you gotta get out there hard because you don't know who's gonna have the need for something to move them in. So it ends up, usually you're doing better than 50, but it depends on, like the Anchor Point buildings were all better than 50. Maple Woods and Wenham was not as good, or not as effective, partially because it was elderly. And so the pool was smaller.
Yeah,
And we got way less local applicants for that than I thought we would. In Beverly's case, that building, a 39-unit building, we had 1,000 applicants for that.
Wow.
And about half of them were Beverly affiliated. And that could be the kids go to school there, the parents work there, or they live there. Those were sort of the categories. Occasionally, you guys have regional school, right?
Yes.
Masco?
Yes.
Yeah. So occasionally, we'll say to a community, when you want to say work here, do you want the regional school included? Even if their work building is not in Middleton. You might. You know, so that's a suggestion we might make and say, is that how you want this? We make the pitch to the state, but they control the verdict. But we've been pretty successful with it. Their main concern is they want to make sure you're
That-
not, sorry, go ahead.
Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, or
Yes.
is it, okay.
Yes, Executive Office of Housing, Livable Communities. Their goal is they want to make sure you're not using local preference to discriminate against certain racial groups. That's really what they're after.
Understood.
So we often, which we agree with, so we're often sending them data. Here's the community, this is where we're marketing to, this is the racial makeup, this is what we're proposing, and then they'll navigate it from there.
So one other challenge in Middleton is that we don't have public transit, that
Yep.
this is a very car-dependent
It is.
community. How does that affect the projects that you?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's always better if you can be closer to transit, but I'm sort of in any port in the storm type. I'm like, it's so, as I mentioned before, we got 1,000 applications for 39 units. I'd rather give people the opportunity to make choices and have a chance and figure out the transit than not. Occasionally, we'll do busing, especially if it's an elderly building. We'll get like a, like a shuttle. We might make an arrangement with the Council on Aging if they have one. We might lease one. We might, sometimes we're paying like a fee to somebody who's running buses like the ARC or one of the seniors groups or something and say, hey, can you do a pickup and drop off to the grocery store on Tuesday and Thursday for this building, and then we pay for it. So it depends on what the use is, but I'm always sort of like, I'll take the housing anywhere I can get it. I think from a planning standpoint, that's probably not the right answer. But I'd rather have it and have that problem than not have it.
Yeah.
So I'll take it. It's a very practical answer, but that's.
Does building in a community that has a single tax rate more incentive to you?
Not really.
Okay.
No, because we pay, I should say, we pay taxes on all our stuff. That's a big item for us. But typically, we'll work with the assessor because the tax rate, in our case, we don't care so much about the rate as we do about the valuation. And so we'll give them, hey, here's the budget for this thing. The net operating income is going to be X, the cap rate is Y, therefore the valuation is Z, and your tax rate is X, and that's what we'll pay. So we're usually negotiating with them around the valuation question, because it's not these things are not, they don't throw off lots of cash flow, and so they pay taxes, but the value is not high because the usage is restricted.
Yeah.
The rents are capped. It's not like it's a luxury building or something. But it's not really I don't know that we've ever experienced it, so I don't know that it would be an incentive. I'll tell you what we have experienced lately, and would be an incentive or a disincentive, is we've started this. We saw recently one of the communities, they were charging multifamily buildings more for their water. Not specifically to get at us. They just, somebody somewhere made a decision and said, and it was like 4 times the amount per gallon. And so our water bill, like for these.
Was it for the water or the connection fee?
It was for the water, ongoing basis. Wasn't the initial connection. We do pay that as well, but I have to look at the bill, but I'm pretty sure it was for the water.
Okay.
And so they had this use, and what I don't know is whether it was the use of the water. Sometimes they split up the sewer and the water. Whatever it was, we were paying wildly more because we had a single meter. So our water bill quadrupled for this like elderly building.
You were looked at as a single unit high user.
Yeah.
So we went back, I'm like, this is not like a big house watering its lawn. This is 30 little old ladies, in this building. They just have 1 meter. And I can't get them, I haven't been able to get them to change it. We're going to mount another approach this fall. But I'm like, guys, it's like a very small building with a very marginal budget. It's like 20 grand a year for this extra water. So
Okay.
We're thinking twice about that town. Just because of that, where I'm like, no, I'm not doing that again.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah, but not the tax rate.
One thing here also is that we don't have sewer.
Yep.
How has that affected past projects?
Yeah, we did it in Wenham, and we're going to do it in Hamilton. So it affects you really in 2 ways. What we see in the towns with sewer is we're paying connection fees. either for sewer or for water, and so we know what the formula is. We don't love those either, but they are what they are, and so you're planning for it in the budget. In my head, my math, it's sort of a swap. You're either paying to build your own system, or you're paying the connection fee. If you're building your own system, what I'll say is we almost always then try to stay under 90 bedrooms because that's the cap that's the cap for like local Board of Health governance as opposed to DEP. So it's sort of like if you're at 91 bedrooms, you might as well be at 300 bedrooms because your compliance requirements and your sophistication jumps so high. So we try to stay to 90. So Wenham is 45 units. It only happens to be 45 bedrooms. The Hamilton project we're doing is exactly 90 bedrooms. So we did the ratio. It's 9,900 gallons a day. 10,000 gallons a day is the limit. And so we now know how to design the wastewater and the septic now to do that. So it's okay. It's $500,000. It's one of the costs of the whole thing, and you can do it. But we stay away from bigger than that treatment plant require. Like if I have to have a chemist on staff to be, then I'm like, nah, then it's got to be huge, and that's generally people don't want huge from us, so we don't do that. We could do more than one in a sequence if there was a phasing. But that's how we do it. 10 years ago, I didn't really know anything about septic, and then we did a few of them, and now I'm like, yeah, what about where's the Coltec pipe on how close is you hear yourself talk, and you think, why do I care about
Why do I know this?
Why do I know
so
that
much space in my brain.
It is. Like, why do I need to know we need a backup leaching field just in case? But it's the way it is. So we got it now. We got it down. Yeah, it's no problem. Yeah.
Any other questions? Costa?
Thanks for the opportunity, though.
I do have a question.
Yeah, sure.
So we talked a little bit about the process of like if you were going to respond to an RFP, but assuming most of these are built, you're going out and seeking a parcel.
Yes.
How do you decide? Do you work with the community when you're figuring out kind of the structure, the amenities, the kinds of like how you want to focus the building? Is that something that you kind of come in and do a little bit of engagement about? What's your process with that?
Yeah, it usually depends on how it got there. Like sometimes we'll know, especially if we're really well known in a community or they know us well. Sometimes we'll know, hey, the community really wants us to do the X on this site. And then we might be talking about the how part, like the design and the services and that kind of thing. But you kind of know what you're trying to do. If it's totally clean, and you're like, we don't know what, we got this parcel, we have no idea, it's not public. We're probably then talking to staff and then leadership first, saying, here's what we have. And our general view is we have this sort of Venn diagram, which is what's going to be physically possible that respects the context and is still going to fit. Like, do you have ledge? Do you have a wetland border? You're not going to go 10 stories, like that kind of thing. Then we want to see what's financially viable. And then the last one is what's politically viable. So if we go into a community and say, hey, we're talking to you all or leadership, we could fit this kind of size. And that could do this kind of use, that kind of use, the other kind of use. Then we're starting to listen to those folks tell us we might want local preference. We're concerned that you stay under this height. We'd like to see these kinds of amenities. But a lot of times they're asking us, and we're saying, we think this is probably a good approach here for this population on this basis. And you're iterating your way to comfort. Invariably, what I'll tell you is every time something ends up being important that you don't expect is going to be important, and you think you got it, and then something else comes up. So we're working on a project now in Gloucester, and the neighbors are really, really interested in the outdoor amenity space for the kids that are going to live in the building. So we sort of we figured out we changed the design based on what they gave us for feedback. We do a lot of neighbor meetings, usually before permitting. Like by the time we get to permitting meetings, where they're formal meetings, we want to be pretty well
Yep.
Aligned.
I'm
done.
very glad to hear that one.
It's kind of formal at that point, but, so we'll spend a year or more You know, and sometimes that's with an individual about a real specific problem.
Yep.
Sometimes that's with a group. But the one in Gloucester now, they want to dig into, like, tell us how the playground is gonna, I did not see that coming at all, right? I'm like, okay, we can, like, if that's important and you want, they're concerned about kids they haven't, which is kind of cool, that they don't know and where they're gonna be able to play and how that's gonna be for them. Love it, that's awesome. But I've had other ones, a lot of ones that you know are common is, how's the lighting gonna work? Where's the parking gonna be? How's the drainage? Like, we're used to those, are kind of common. How tall, where the window's gonna lie, you know, that kind of stuff you're kind of used to, you get through that quick. But there's always another thing, there's always some other thing.
Costa?
Is there a general rule of thumb as to what costs more? Taking an old building and renovating it into 4 units, or building new 4 units?
Yeah, from a construction and a business standpoint, you always want to build new. So the only time we're reusing, and we do, is usually the community wants the building. Right, so when we did the Briscoe School in Beverly, they had a proposal to knock it down and build the 17 houses, you know, which was the most lucrative to the city. They were going to make the most money on the sale. But that building has been there since 1925, and everybody has gone to school there. So it was clear in the RFP, you cannot knock it down. And that changed okay, if you take that as a solid variable, then you're cutting with the grain. But it's much harder from a construction standpoint, especially, I'll tell you, with the sustainability requirements now on the building envelope and energy, much harder than it used to be.
Yes,
So what
it's
about-
Very hard to,
what-
hard to rehab an old
Wicked hard.
building to get it up to today's standards. I know I've been in construction
Hard,
my whole
right?
life, so
If you got a concrete
very hard.
block wall and you can't insulate,
Yep.
what are you gonna do? How do you meet
What
that?
about, instead of, you know, the experience where they wanted you to renovate the school rather than tear down and rebuild, what if, maybe the building doesn't have to remain, but the look of the facade has
Yeah.
to stay?
Yeah, that happens. Yeah, so we haven't done one, but we've gone through processes, iterated through processes where we talked about even keeping a facade quite literally, like trying to do a facade-ectomy, you know, and then build behind it. Replication is a little tougher. You can do style, like you can do a design style to make it work. But the architects and they don't let me pick any colors, fashion. I'm the money and politics guy. They don't let me match socks. But I hear them, and what they'll say is like they don't want to try to make something look like it was something else because it generally will go badly. But a facade you could keep, or a design style. They're okay with like an homage, like we're going to celebrate this thing that was here, but they don't want to make it look like you think it's the same thing, because then it's like an insult, design-wise.
Yeah, understood.
So I follow kind of their lead, but you can do any of it, right? And it's in the school's case, it was a big enough project, and we used historic tax credits in that case. So there were other workarounds because it was important to the community to keep it. That's a lot harder, to your point. If you're doing 4 units, you're really in trouble. So, and it's easier if it's, I will say, it's easier if it's wood than if it's block or brick.
A lot of work in Marblehead and Old Town trying
Hard,
to
right?
renovate houses that, excuse me, they were, you know, from the late 1800s, and trying to get water pipes and
Brutal.
gas pipes and electrical around is very hard to keep the facade the way it looks.
So you try. So we're always like, we'd rather know what the variables are and then try to hit it, or say to people like, we could do this, we could do this, you could do this. And then you're going through a process. That way people don't feel like it's a surprise when you're getting a permitting and you say, really, we can't do this thing. They want to know why. Well, you've already talked about, well, I'd have to drill this through that and knock this off. And we've done them before. I did a little one in Hamilton years ago. The only thing we ended up keeping was the stairs. By the time we were done, you know, that was a moment where I was like, what am I even doing? Like, we thought we had to protect this building for the folks, and it looks nothing like the previous building, and the only original thing is the stairway. But at the beginning, you think it's important, right? You're going to the hearings, and you're trying to be responsive, so. It's a little bit art, it's a little bit science.
So the last question I'd have for you
Yeah.
is, more often than not, does the affordable housing trusts and communities that you've worked with come to you and say, this is how we'd like to do something with you? Or are you coming to affordable housing trusts and say, you know, we think there's an opportunity to do something in your town. Here are some ways we'd like to work with you.
Yeah, it goes both ways. I'd say more often the former, though at this point, a lot of those relationships are so long that you sort of forget how you started. There are some, if it's new, it's usually the community has either they have a problem they're trying to solve, or they have a parcel they're trying to deal with. Those are often the first intros. Very frequently, what I find, though, is you never do anything with that first parcel, but it starts the
Starts the
rapport.
conversation. So I think we have a little bit of both here in this town. I think we have some parcels that we're interested in maybe doing something with, but
Yeah.
secondarily, and maybe primarily, we've got some issues, you know, that you heard us earlier around, that most towns do, but I think going through a 40B process over the last couple of years has, I think, educated the boards and educated the town
Yep.
that, you know, we have an affordability issue in this town.
Yep.
You know, folks are coming here for a 40B because we have an affordability issue in this town.
Right.
And then affordable is 200,
Right.
or 2,200 a month?
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
for
And-
who?
Yeah, and what I do appreciate on a 40B is, you know, the town gets credit for every unit, even those that aren't affordable.
Right.
What I really want, I mean, that's a little wallpaper. That is,
I would say, yeah.
we've now reached affordability, our 10%, but what percent is actually affordable?
Yeah.
What I love about you and groups like yours is, we build it,
Yeah.
we manage it, stays affordable. We find amenities that we can bring to that, like your story of Tuesdays and Thursdays, we're just going to pay for a vendor to actually
Right.
provide transportation back and forth the Market Basket.
Right.
Because that's a need.
Right.
And that's an amenity, and that's not something you get in a 40B with X number of units that are actually affordable.
Agreed. Yeah, we would refer to that as compliance affordability, to your point, as opposed to practically, it's not that affordable to anybody, but
And also gives
That's
up the
comply.
opportunity for that local preference.
Yeah.
For relying on 40B all the time.
yeah, agreed.
You had a question earlier.
Oh, yeah, in terms of length of project, how long in some of your smaller ones, from the time you decide to take on a project till seeing it through?
Yeah.
What is the average
Yeah,
time
good
frame?
question. Long. So I have, let's see, fast, if you do, from the day we're talking about it, right? We're sitting here, this is to your earlier question, we're kicking around an idea, to the day people are moving in. Like, if you can do that in 4 years, you're on fire. Like, that's so fast. Largely because you're dealing with these big incremental sequential timelines. Like we mentioned earlier, a year of community non-permitting work, you're just working with the neighborhood, that could take you a year. Permitting, depending on what type, could easily be 6 months, can be longer. And then you're waiting for money from the state. And that can be, usually that's 12 months at a whack. So depending on when you're ready, you might be waiting 4 months for the application to open, you submit. Almost always you get denied the first time. It's like an insurance company, right? You get denied, and then you have to wait 12 more months to go back in. And then it's gonna take you 18 months to build it. So you can see how it stacks up pretty quick.
Does the state give any preference in that financing process to projects in communities where there has not been preponderance affordability?
Yeah, I would say there's sort of the written and the unwritten code, as it were. So I'll tell you maybe I'll frame it this way. What is useful is if they feel like they have real affordability as opposed to compliance affordability opportunity in a community they haven't, that has more resources, good schools, a place that there hasn't been a lot of access, they like that a lot. And if they feel like the community has been involved and is supportive and has skin in the game, they like that a lot. And that can come in various forms. Zoning, funding, like we described before. I will say they are traditionally more twitchy. If you haven't done a lot of affordable housing and the first project out of the gate is senior or age restricted, they don't love that. So we've done both. We've done one and then another. But if you come swinging right out with an elderly deal, and especially if it's a mostly white, mostly affluent community, they generally view that as an end run on kids of color in your
Yeah.
school,
Yeah.
and they don't like
I
it.
hear you.
So that's what you got to watch.
Quick question on the funding from the state. Is that going to be dependent on following all the laws from a funding perspective? Because in Middleton, we didn't pass the MBTA
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
sort of legislation, right?
You will
So
have it.
does that
Okay.
preclude us from getting funding from the state?
Well, the funding's going to them, not to us.
Right.
Agreed, but it's coming to a town that doesn't comply.
Yeah, you won't. There are certain kinds of funding you won't get.
Okay.
So, like, you can't get MassWorks. So, if we worked on a deal, for example, and you said, "Hey, I want you to add this sidewalk connection project. It's going to be $1 million," and then you vote against 3A, then the state
We lost
not
the $2
gonna
million
do- You lost. You already did.
We
that?
were
Yeah.
awarded and then lost it.
Yeah. So that will happen. But housing money.
Not
so
folks
far
at this
hasn't-
table that's opposed to it.
I figured. So we were working on one in Raleigh, I mentioned. They wanted us to do, DOT forced us to do a stoplight at an intersection. $500,000. Shouldn't have been our problem, but that's what they did. We needed a curb cut, state highway. They said, you're gonna give us X. Okay. So we get the funding through MassWorks with the town of Raleigh. And then Raleigh votes against 3A. And we're like, guys, the stoplight. Thankfully, they voted for it in a later meeting, and it cleared. But that was going to get jammed
Yeah,
up.
the state took our MassWorks away for an intersection upgrade that the state owns. It's not a town
Exactly.
intersection.
Exactly.
It's not our intersection.
Right, right.
We don't own it, we don't
They
maintain it.
took their money to fix their intersection in your town, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So do you see that being a problem going forward with
I
any
think
of
it's
the-
risky. It's not.
It increases the risk.
It does. And they're going to be less, they'll be a little less happy. On the flip side, though, if they're going to get a housing opportunity for real affordability, they're going to like that, so.
Okay.
You want to watch how that plays out into the, to the next 12 to 18 months, because communities are all going to have to
So
comply.
I'll editorialize here. So the problem is the MBTA zoning program is similar to what we said about 40B. That is not true affordability.
Right.
It's,
Yeah, not untrue.
it's wallpaper.
Just supply.
It's supply housed in the jacket of this is about affordability. And for many of the communities that have passed
Yep.
MBTA zoning, there's going to be zero affordability there.
Right. Right, you can vote 10 to 20% locally, but it's still, you can do it at 80%, and it's not that much. Now, we can still permit within a 3A zone and do something, we can supersede as long as we're under.
Yeah.
Like so that's often what we'll
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
So that'll work, but we keep an eye on it.
Okay.
Some stuff for sure, like MassWorks. The other stuff, you don't know.
I mean, especially with like our overlay, which wasn't actually even going to increase units. So,
Yeah, literally was not going to increase the number of units.
Right.
A whole nother discussion for another time.
Yes, good luck to you.
Costa?
thank you.
Have you ever bought existing housing to preserve it as affordable?
Yes. You mean existing affordable housing or existing non-affordable housing?
A housing that is affordable, is rented as affordable
But may be
under a
expiring?
set program,
Yes,
and that program is expiring,
yes.
and then will you go in and try to buy something like that? So
Yes.
that you can preserve the,
Yes. Yeah, we like that, actually. That's a good use of energy and capital.
because there might be something like
Sure.
that in
Love it.
town.
What's harder, I wanted to be sure I knew where you were going. So like we bought, for example, the Rockport High School apartments on Broadway in Rockport was a rural development, a USDA
SDA rural development.
Yeah.
deal, and it was expiring use, that's the technical term.
Yeah, I
and
think
we
that's a
bought it.
35-year program, if I remember.
Yeah, well, that's probably about right, yeah. So we bought it to protect its ongoing affordability, and we did the same thing with another RD project up the street. What's much harder, and we have tried to do recently, is buy what's known as naturally occurring affordable housing, meaning it's not programmatic, but it functions, it's rented at a lower level, and then try to make that formally affordable. That has proved incredibly difficult. It's a big conversation statewide right now. We tried to buy 100 units in Lynn last year for that purpose, to protect them, and decided not to do it. It was too risky. But the other kind, yeah, we'll do that all day. Yep.
What's the risk of that?
Yeah, there are multiple risks. 2 or 3 of the hard ones are, as soon as you touch it, from a construction standpoint, once you do a certain level of rehab, you're now required to comply
With everything.
with all new codes. So you might go in saying, I'm going to buy this to protect it for the residents who are there, and then you take in the teeth this massive liability for accessibility, energy code. So it might be a perfectly fine.
Before you know it, you're putting sprinkler systems in and.
All kinds.
Fire prevention, everything, yeah.
And it's occupied. So that's the second risk, was you're going to have to move people out and in. They're not our people. We've done occupied renovation with buildings we control. You have relationships, you can sort of manage, okay, Mrs. Smith, we're going to put you over here, and then Ms. Gomez, we're going to put you over here, and then we're going to do your unit, and then we'll put you back, and, that works. But you roll up in a brand-new building and say, hey, don't worry, we're going to do this. Nobody wants, so that was a huge risk. And then there were some other ways in which the money we were going to use to do it would require compliance with certain regulations on the affordability side right away. And we didn't know when we were going to be able to, it was going to take 4 or 5 years to get it all to work. But you had to comply on day one for something, it was going to take you, 60 months to implement, and that, so, anyway, we spent a lot of money and time on that one and stepped away from it. They're going to crack, that's not only an us problem or a
Yeah,
Middleton,
Yeah.
they're trying to figure that out broadly. But I'll buy whatever the one is you're referencing.
This was really helpful.
Yeah.
Happy to be here.
Very informational.
So one of the things I'd like to leave you with is, we've got some parcels that you're probably going to see. I think we're going to be issuing, the town's going to be issuing probably through the select board a RFI, maybe in a not too distant future. We do have a parcel that we're going to be issuing an RFP on.
Okay.
That's public. We talked about it at our meeting last night, actually. It's the current police station right on 114. It's a very small parcel. It's about an acre and a half.
Yep.
It's actually right in front of an affordable development that has been in place. How long has that been there, Costa?
Oh, I know where it's an RD development.
Yes.
Oak Knoll,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Oak Knoll's been there over, close to 50 years now, right?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yep.
Secondarily, you drive by our current town hall. At some point, decisions are going to be made of what we're going to do that. It is very evident that building is not going to be kept for another purpose. We don't have another purpose for it. And I'll speak for myself as a member of that board, where we're not just going to mothball it and drive by it every day.
Right.
The beauty of that property is there is some beautiful recreational space behind it.
Oh, nice.
I think it is very well situated for a redevelopment to, it's not a very big building. I think there's discussions of, that's why I asked you the question about facade.
Yep.
I think where the building is situated
Yep.
is not conducive for the building to be reutilized. Never mind that it's an old building. And then the third piece is, we have a large parcel that several years ago, town meeting gave approval to the select board to dispose of, and we're trying to figure out what is the best use for that.
Got it.
Tomorrow, we could sell it in probably 14 to 17, 4,000 square foot single family homes could be built there. We'd bring in a decent amount of tax revenue, and
Sure.
it's going to do absolutely nothing for everything we've talked about. Secondarily, we could do some zoning changes up there, but we're also, I think, engaging in some discussions of, do we just issue either an RFI or a future RFP of what could you do that may mean that we bring in less on a sale price,
Yep.
but allow a developer to build something that is more attuned to giving folks that work here an opportunity to live here, folks that live here an opportunity to continue to live here,
Yep.
or folks to age in place, or any combination thereof. And so
Sounds great.
I'd welcome the input from Harbor Light, and then lastly, if you think this is something that you could do with this board, we'd be open to that discussion.
Okay. And if we run into something, we would bring that back. Right? Say, hey, we got access to, we're looking at, what do you think?
We'd truly like to be your far western reach of your region.
See, I appreciate that. I'm going to tell my board that. They'll love that.
Were you previously known as something other than Harbor Light?
So yeah, we were Harbor Light Community Partners for 15 years or so. We rebranded recently, about 2 years ago, because sometimes that was confusing to people.
Okay.
Before that, we were FBC Property Management Corp. That's when we were a subsidiary, or related closely to the church.
Got it.
But that was quite a long time ago.
Okay.
Yep. Good.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. This
Thank
was
you very much.
really
Yes.
helpful.
Very nice to
very
see you all.
Okay,
Thank you
thanks
your
for coming
time.
here. I appreciate it.
Thank you for
Very
juggling me on the agenda as well. I had daycare pickup, and my son stole my ice pop, and there was a whole thing.
Well, I hope you get one on the way home.
You read my mind.
Yeah, go by Richardson's Ice Cream.
I don't think I did this time. Those calories won't count.
No, not at all. It's all part of work anyway, so.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Take care.
Okay, so, last on the agenda is, how much money and interest did you make us this month?
Well, also I have a first pass at the current year budget.
The what?
Current year for.
Oh, thank you.
Same format as last time, on the front page, top section dark blue is my recommended budget or this discussion. Bottom section is the actual, reverse side is a 5-year model for giggles. What I've done in the budget is for income, I only have interest income for the year. We have nothing else lined up. For expenditures, I have $1,000 budgeted in month 3, which is September, for marketing materials. And then home repairs, we, as a board, agreed to take $100,000 and use our home repair program. For now, I just said, well,
Spread it out.
50,000 a year, spread it out. So 50,000 this year, 50,000 next year, and then you look at the long-term model, I have that going out for next year's. And that is it I have for expenses for now. I have posted actual for July. We earned $252 of interest, so.
So the tool buying, but once we have have hired a librarian again,
Yeah.
I think that's going to come up at some point also.
Yep.
Yep.
Otherwise,
Would you have
yeah.
a number you want me just to throw in the chat to keep it in our memory?
What do we end up voting on? For
You know, I'm gonna have to look.
Yeah.
We did vote on a number for that,
Yeah,
but
we
I'll look
did.
back in my notes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
You can shoot me an email when you can.
Yeah, I can do that.
Think of anything else, guys, or you can email me, but
Okay, this is good. Rich, thank you.
Quick question, and I know I keep hopping on this. The CPC contribution, is that taken into consideration for future years?
the CPC is taken into consideration for what we've been approved for, which we have not been approved for this fiscal year.
Okay.
I do have it in the long-term model
Yes.
for out years. I also have a bump up because CPC may not be, funding to the library will be ending, and they'll be looking for new projects.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and Herman, I'd like you to point out that you are not a member of this committee as a citizen at large. You are a member as a representative of the CPC.
Well, thank you so much for reminding me. I appreciate it. I shall now say member of the CPC.
We're all members of the CPC.
So the 50,000, I just picked that out of the air. I have no idea to know how this program's gonna go, but I figured, do it over 2 years and gives us something anyways.
Yep, no, I appreciate that.
Lets us get our feet wet.
Okay. And so, and I see that you're building out in your model as well as starting in FY #27, an actual Middleton annual town meeting contribution as well.
Yeah, I put a number there just so we have as a discussion and we can play that out when as we get to the annual town meeting. I also have potential,
North Shore Home Consortium.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then another project, I just put it on there as a placeholder, a larger amount, particularly if we get additional CPC money, and we can discuss how we're gonna utilize that. Maybe we're into property acquisition, or who knows?
Or partnerships with organizations like just left the door here today.
Exactly.
So what I heard clearly is, as part of the discussion, back to your point in budget is, and to your point, Herman, from you sit down with an organization like that to the doors open, 4+ years. So, I think going into the next budget cycle for the next fiscal year, we're having some small wins here as an organization, but I think we have to start planning for that 4-year cycle if there's something that we're going to do as a committee that is going to be more transformative,
Yeah.
other than the pieces we've been doing right now. Okay.
We have opportunities that we will exhibit to.
Good. And we'll speak to our resident CPC member here. So.
Just remember, you need to have your request in for the next fiscal year by the capital budget Saturday for that fiscal year.
It's gonna be on my agenda.
Okay.
One-
Any other items for future agenda?
I just have a note about scheduling.
Yeah.
So, I didn't realize this until I was looking at this agenda, but I did double book myself. We are having a zoning bylaw review public forum on October 1st. So if we could potentially reschedule our October meeting, or figure out either another day or.
So I would say the only thing that we would need for definite to keep the wheels moving on October is if there are changes to the contract with Habitat for Humanity. If there's not any changes, it just literally needs probably my signature on it.
Yeah.
So, given that, there's nothing else I think that's really pressing on the agenda.
No.
Because if we roll out this program in October, there's going to be no decisions to be made on that. So I'm okay with an October.
Cancellation.
Yeah, and I think you're going to be a little bit busy with the other activities that you're working on specifically for that meeting, and I don't know, we have like a 40B going on, and
We might have,
things.
there likely will be a few other things, yeah. Yeah.
So then November 5th?
so that would move us back to November, is November 5th?
That's a Wednesday. It's the first Wednesday.
Okay.
Okay.
The only thing I'd ask everybody is to stand by if we end up with language change in the contract that requires us to just get together to actually make a vote. Okay.
Thanks.
I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
We stand adjourned. Thank you.